Welcome to another episode of the Visto Show. It is Friday. Of course it's Friday, because that's the day of the week we do the Visto Show. It is Friday, April the 12th. How the heck are you? Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good week. As per usual, IRCC, the gift that keeps on giving. We got lots to discuss this episode. Lots to talk about in Canadian immigration. I'm trying to think back, because when I was practicing, 2017, 2018, 2019, what did we do all day? There was no news. There was ever since COVID, especially the last 2-3 years, Canadian immigration has just been nuts. It seems like every other week there's a huge announcement, update, new program, exemption, exception, whatever. And the one thing that it really does is it sure gives us a heck of a lot to talk about. So as somebody who likes to create content, I guess I can't complain too much. But anyways, thank you very much for tuning in. We got a bunch of people tuning in live, which is awesome. Feel free to drop a hello in the chat. Let me know how you're doing. I like to obviously share updates, news, opinions, and stuff about immigration, and I also like to make it a two-way street. So if you are tuning in live on LinkedIn, thank you very much. Feel free to drop a hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from, how you're doing, how your day is going. And if you're watching after the fact on YouTube, well, what the heck are you waiting for? Make sure you're following me on LinkedIn, because I record this live every 2 weeks at noon Eastern Time. That's 12 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. And the benefit of tuning in live is you get to share your opinions, ask questions, all that kind of stuff with me live on air. So anyways, thanks again, everybody who is tuning in live. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to jump right in, because there's some big, interesting topics to talk about. The first one that I want to talk about is the new statement, or I should say the recent statement. I'm going to share my screen here. The recent statement from Minister Miller on international student allocations for provinces and territories. And as per usual, I'm going to put this link in the chat if you want to follow along with me. If you are watching on YouTube, I will have these links in the description as well below if you want to follow along with me as well, which would be awesome. Sorry, I'm just getting LinkedIn all configured here on the right side. There we go. Kelly says good morning from Revelstoke, BC. Hey Kelly, how you doing? How's it looking in BC? It's been pretty gray and rainy here in Toronto over the last few days. Hopefully it's a little brighter over there. Abdul says hello, doing great. Hey Abdul, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in live. Appreciate all your help and support. So I am going to jump right in, and we are going to talk about study permit allocations for the provinces and territories. As per usual, I'm not going to read every single word because, as we know, it's a lot of, government mumbo jumbo, but worth reading if you have a few extra minutes. So recently in January, they announced the cap, and basically what they're doing here is spending a little bit of time covering the math that they came up with to decide these allocations, right? So the national cap is based on the amount of expiring study permits this year. This means that the number of international students coming to Canada in 2024 should be the same as the number of students whose permit expire. So I kind of read that as, okay, well, they want a net zero first year, right? So we don't want to increase the number of absolute international students that are inside Canada studying. About 20% of students apply for an extension. Therefore, IRCC subtracted 97,000, blah, blah, blah. Accordingly, based on the national approval rate of 60%, which is kind of crazy, the fact that the overall study permit application approval rating is only 60% maybe is a little bit concerning to some of us. How does that speak to the quality of the other 40%? How many or how much resources does IRCC have to spend in processing all of these lower quality applications? I don't know, maybe that's a conversation for another time. The target of 364,000 approved study permits translates into a cap of 606,000 study permit applications. Some international students are exempt from the cap, such as primary and secondary schools and master's or doctoral degree students. IRCC deducted the estimated volume of these groups from that amount So it resulted in a target of 236,000 approved study permits, which converts to roughly 393,000 study permit applications to be allocated. So a little bit of background, right? We already had the absolute number, but they gave us a little bit of math and background on how they came to that number, as well as finalizing the provincial and territorial allocations. My apologies. And so they go into more detail here. IRCC distributed the adjusted number of study permit applications based on the population share of each province and territory, right? So what is your provincial population as a percentage of Canada's population? That's how we're going to allocate. Under this model, some provinces and territories would get more students in 2024 than in 2023, while others would see fewer, right? Because, for example, like the proportion of international students that go to Ontario is higher than their proportion of absolute population, right? So Ontario might make up, I'm just throwing out numbers, Ontario might make up 35% of Canada's population, but it might be 45% of international students might go to Ontario, right? That's what they're saying here. For provinces that would receive more international students based on population share, we adjusted their allocation to limit growth to 10%. Okay, so if there was a huge imbalance, like let's say New Brunswick, it only makes up 10% of Canada's population, but by this new math, it was going to result in 22% of new international students. They actually curbed it down so it would only be 20%, right? So that no singular province would grow by more than 10%, which makes sense to me, right? Because do they have the systems and the resources in place to handle, or can they even intake more than 10% of the number of students that they did last year? So this one makes sense to me. For provinces that would receive fewer international students, we adjusted their allocation to lessen the negative impact in the first year and support broader regional immigration goals. So basically what it sounds like is they put these limits on the ceilings and the floors so that no province would benefit too much and no province would be hit too hard, which makes sense in my opinion. IRCC also topped up allocations whose approval rate was lower than 60%. The top-ups will help provinces with lower approval rates reach their expected number of approval study permits. I mean, this one kind of stuck out at me. I don't know if you're all kind of agreeing or disagreeing. This is the one that kind of made me think, did you really have to do that? Like they're basically what they're basically saying here is, if your province has a very low approval rating, we're going to give you a little bit higher proportion to make up for all the applications that get rejected. Now, my problem with this is that you're basically, what's the word I'm looking for here? You're basically rewarding the bad behavior, right? Why do certain provinces or schools have low approval ratings? Probably because they're not doing a very good job and or attracting the wrong kind of students and or attracting poor applications, right? So, and the problem here too is it's, if one province wins, another province loses, right? There's only a finite number of these attestation letters, right? So what they're basically saying is, hey, we're going to take away a few attestation letters from the provinces that have a high approval rating, and we're going to give them to the provinces that have a low approval rating. So you're punishing the provinces that are doing their job a little bit better. They're getting higher quality students and attracting them to, submit applications that IRCC likes and approves. And instead, you're giving a higher allocation to provinces and schools that are doing a worse job. So I think this is where I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit. Again, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. If anybody has an opinion on that or feedback on why they think that is the case, then, by all means chime in. But this is the one part that I looked at and I was kind of like, okay, this is where you lose me a little bit, but the rest of it makes sense. As a result, a total of blah have been allocated to provinces. These allocations are expected to yield approximately 292,000 approved study permits, 28% reduction from 2023. That's big, right? Like imagine, I don't know what industry you work in or what your job is or blah, but imagine if your industry or company took a 28% hit next year, or this year, I guess. it's going to be tough. It's going to be rough going for some of these, I think, especially the private colleges, maybe some public colleges and universities, depending on what province they're in, and probably a lot of study abroad agents and or other firms that are like relying on these commissions, right? I would imagine this is going to hurt a little bit. Anyways, many variables may influence the number of new international students who arrive in Canada. For example, provinces and territories with room to grow may not end up using their full allocations. Approval rates may change. In-year adjustments may be required. These results will help make decisions on allocations for 2025. I've included the full allocation model below. We will continue to work collaboratively with blah 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 bloobity blue. So then if you scroll down a little bit here, you'll see all the math, right? So study permits expiring in 2024, exempted groups, right? So like the master's degree programs, stuff like that, approval rate. So I'm not going to go through this whole chart. I do find it kind of interesting, right? And then they break it down by province and territory. So if you're a little bit more vested in this than I am, I find this stuff really interesting, but I don't work deeply in the international student space, right? So if you do, you might want to do a deeper dive, take a look at the breakdown by province. Some of these numbers are super interesting. like look at this, percent change from 2023. 6,900%, 7,700%, right? So obviously the smaller provinces and territories are going to be affected much more, right? You can see Yukon, 216% change. Now look at this for Ontario, negative 62%, right? So some of these big provinces, what's BC? Negative 47%. What's Quebec? 33% increase. Okay, so some of these provinces are going to be affected very differently than others, for good and for bad. And it'll be, interesting to see how all this stuff pans out. So anyways, read into more of that if you have any interest. Link is in the description if you need it. If you have any thoughts, anybody have any thoughts, opinions on that? Did you find it helpful? Was it interesting? What do you think some of these provinces are going to do? Do you agree with me that the reallocation based on approval rating is maybe a little bit meh? Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to take my patented sip of water before segueing into our next topic. Can you patent an action? Can you patent taking a sip of water? Probably not. Anyways, next topic I want to chat about is our favorite entry, Express Entry. And again, I'm going to put this link in the comments if you want to follow along with me here. And we did have a couple interesting but yet not all that interesting Express Entry draws this week. So you can see on Wednesday, April the 10th, IRCC did a general draw. They invited 1,280 people to apply with a minimum mind-boggling score requirement of 549, which basically means like if you don't have a PNP or you're not a bilingual PhD holding god, you're probably not getting an invite. And then April 11th, they did, I think, the first STEM draw of the year. Yes, the first STEM draw of the year, inviting 4,500 people to apply with still a minimum score requirement of 491 for a industry-specific draw. That is a mother of a score requirement. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess because they haven't done many STEM draws with still, I guess because they haven't done many STEM draws, that the pool of STEM eligible applicants continue to get bigger and bigger. But the reason why this is concerning is Express Entry has gotten really hard, almost impossible to go through the general stream unless you have something like a PNP. And now, so my thinking was like heading into 2024 was, okay, Express Entry is going to be really hard, but it'll still be a good option if you're eligible for one of the industry-specific draws. But now, even if you're eligible for some of the industry-specific draws, you're still going to need a crazy score, right? Depending on what the industry is. right? STEM, you can see 491. French is obviously a bit of an exception because they've been doing a lot of French draws. So you can see like the French score requirements have been very low. Transport draws that they did was 430. Agricultural 437, healthcare 422, so definitely a little bit lower. Not surprising, right? The IRCC has kind of got into this habit of doing a general draw, then an industry draw, right? We can see here March 25th general draw, 26th French draw. General draw, transport draw. General draw, French draw. General draw, and then here they did a healthcare and an ag draw, but the ag draw was very small. So it seems like they're getting into a pattern of every 2 weeks doing a general draw followed by one, maybe two industry-specific draws. And if I can look even deeper into this, so far in 2024, the pattern has been every second draw has been French, right? So you can see here the first one in February was French. Second one in February was the healthcare and ag. The next draw was French. The one after that was transport. The one after that was French. The one after that was STEM. So this begs the question, on April the 24th, is IRCC, and clip this and let's see if I'm right. On April 24th, are they going to do a general draw? And then on April 25th, are they going to do a French draw? Because they didn't do one this time. So that would be my bet if I'm a betting man. I would say 2 weeks from today, not today, 10 days, no, 2 weeks is 17, 12 days from today, are they going to do a general draw? Probably somewhere in the range of like 1,000 to 2,000. You heard it here first, folks. On April the 24th, are they going to do a general draw of somewhere between 1,000 to 2,000? And then the next day, on the 25th of April, are they going to do a French language proficiency draw of somewhere in the range of like 1,500 to 2,500 people? All right, that's my bet. You heard it here first, folks. All right, this is it. Josh's EE bet. Take the screenshot, write it down, mark it in your calendars. We'll say April 24 general, inviting let's say 13-ish hundred people, and then April 25th they're going to do French, and they're going to invite another 1,500 people-ish. Is that a good? French, they did 25. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to stick with this right here. All right? Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? You think it'll be a different stream? Do you think the numbers will be higher or lower? That's what I'm going to, that's my guess. So anyways, that's it for Express Entry. Let me know what you think. Do you agree, disagree? And we will have to see what happens. I should set a reminder. You know what? I'm gonna set a quick calendar reminder. I don't know why I did this in Paint. Why did I do this in Paint? I should have done it like in a note. And I'm gonna say we'll make this for Wednesday, April the 24th, and I'm gonna call it Josh's EE guess. Now, can I copy paste this? No, I can't. Crap. Okay. So I'm gonna say general 1300, and I'm gonna say April 25th, French 1500. Alrighty, folks, enough of my nonsense. Let's move on to the next topic. So a couple really quick little updates that I wanted to share that I do think are really exciting. Number one is we're launching some pretty cool spousal sponsorship automation, probably on Monday or Tuesday of this week. So as many of you know, Visto is an immigration software company, and we help Canadian immigration firms automate and streamline. Excuse me, oh my god, I just came off a big lunch. We help immigration firms automate and streamline the preparation and management of their Canadian immigration applications with their clients. And what we're launching early next week is a spousal automation flow, spousal sponsorship automation flow, right? So far we've automated most of these other applications, like all the temporary applications, study work visit from outside Canada, study work visit from inside Canada. Now, when I say automate, I mean you click a button, study permit from outside Canada as an example, and we create a new application where you can invite your client, and you can manage the whole process. There's a progress tracker. Visto will even auto-generate a list of tasks and documents and forms that your client can start working on. You can then review everything, generate the PDFs, comment back and forth, one-click merge, compress, rename, all that fun stuff. Now, what we're doing, we automate one permit at a time. We've come a long way over the last year. We've automated all the temporary residence applications, express entry, LMIA, all that fun stuff. Early next week, we'll be launching spousal sponsorship. And as some of you might know, spousal sponsorship is a pain in the ass. And what I mean by that is, if you've ever applied for it yourself or you're an immigration professional, you know spousal sponsorship is the document checklist of all document checklists, right? It is a lot of documents. It is a lot of forms. For some reason, some of the forms are online. Some of them are still in PDF. God knows why. If anybody at IRCC is watching this, can you please, why are some of the forms online forms and some of them are PDFs? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. But anyways, what we've built here at Visto to hopefully make it a little bit better is a streamlined application flow with the document checklist pre-built, all the forms pre-built. You can invite your client. They can fill out everything in one place. You can review it all. You can one-click generate the PDFs. You can one-click merge, compress, and rename all their supporting documents. It's going to be really cool. So I'm testing it as we speak, and it should go live early next week. So if you're an immigration professional or you work at an immigration firm in Canada and you think that might be interesting, or anything else I just showed you here might be interesting, then by all means, let me know. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn or check us out at Visto.ai, Visto.ai. All right. The second last thing I wanted to quickly shout out is the CIPP, the Canadian Immigration Pros podcast. If you haven't listened to it yet, we had some really exciting episodes go live. So basically, every couple days, I have a interview. So I'm going to put a link to this in the description and the chat as well. For those of you who don't know yet, if you're living under a rock, I interview other Canadian immigration consultants, lawyers, and we talk about some of the most interesting and, pressing issues in Canadian immigration, right? So you can watch it on YouTube or you can listen to it on your favorite podcast platform of your choice. All the links are there. If there's a platform you like that we don't have, let me know and I could probably add it in. Some really good conversations lately. So for example, this last episode with Adrian Smith, we had a good conversation where I actually learned a lot, because when I was practicing, I never did JRs or anything like I didn't do litigation or anything like that. So we did a deep dive on judicial reviews, reconsideration requests, visa refusals, tips on how to overcome them. That was really interesting. Had an episode with Alexandra where we talked about kind of Canadian immigration in general, permanent residence, express entry, where we see things going, that kind of stuff. Similar kind of conversation with Florence, although this one circled a little bit more around students and also PNPs. She has a really good experience and suggestions around PNPs. Had a good conversation with Justin about the state of immigration in general and consultants and IRCCs and kind of how they fit into it. So anyways, I'm not going to go through every episode, right? There's a lot of them. We cover a wide range of topics. There's an episode on LMIA fraud, episode on the CAP, episode on scams, episode on the startup visa, French programs. So anyways, definitely check this out. If there's a topic that you have in mind, we've probably covered it somewhere. Or if not, let me know, and I'll bring on some more professionals to cover the topics that we haven't already. Lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about, because I definitely like to talk about the overlap of tech and immigration. And one thing that I've noticed a lot of that maybe you have too, especially for those immigration professionals that are out there, is the prevalence of DIY services. Now, what are DIY services? Let me share my screen here in just a second. And I'm going to put a link to this. This is a recent blog post that we put up, because more and more what I'm seeing is immigration professionals that are using software like Visto to offer DIY services to their clients. Now, what is DIY? DIY stands for do it yourself and is basically it's the middle option between an aspiring immigrant applying by themselves on one end of the spectrum, or paying a lot of money or a little money for an immigration consultant or an immigration lawyer to prepare everything and submit it for you, right? Because up until recently, those are really the only two options, right? Do you want to apply by yourself and figure it out on your own, or do you want to spend probably four figures, if not more, to work with an immigration professional that's going to prepare everything and submit it on your own? Now I'm seeing a lot of, especially the firms that use Visto, are starting to offer DIY services as an option. And this is basically where the law firm will help the immigration professional prepare everything, review it, provide feedback, but then the aspiring immigrant will go submit the application on their own and kind of manage the communication and application and portal with IRCC by themselves. Now, why is this happening and why has this become so popular? Why am I so bullish on it? A few reasons. Number one is IRCC is trying to make things easier, right? So they're trying to build better portals and better flows so that it is easier for aspiring applicants to apply on their own. But obviously, the process can still be confusing, so you still want like the input of a professional. Number two is applicants are probably smarter than ever, right? Because now we live in the digital age. There's unlimited guides and YouTube videos and stuff like that, right? So you don't have people applying who have no clue what any of this stuff is or how it works, right? So you have more educated clients who maybe don't need the lawyer or the consultant to do everything and explain everything, right? What they're most interested in, which is the most value really that an immigration professional is providing, is reviewing the entire application and giving feedback to make sure that it's high quality, right? And it has a high chance of being approved. So this is why I think it's kind of the best of both worlds. The other thing is, dealing with these portals has become a huge pain in the arse for the immigration firms, right? So firms end up spending, and this is part of why prices continue to go up in the immigration industry, is because now, as compared to like 5 years ago, let's say, it takes longer to prep and submit a file if you're an immigration professional. There's more rules and regs and exemptions and exceptions and all this stuff. Then you got to go find the right portal. You got to hope that the portal, you can even log in that day and you don't get kicked out, and managing it is a disaster, and then communication back and forth and reconsideration requests and stuff like that, right? So immigration professionals have to spend more time on applications, mostly for admin work. But if you offer DIY, you don't have to. You can take that part out, right? So I see the DIY, I've heard a lot of mixed feelings about offering DIY. Some firms love it. Some firms only are now doing DIY, which has been really interesting when I learned about that. Some firms offer it as an option, and some firms think it's crazy and have no idea why they would ever offer it. I actually think it's where the industry is going, and I think we're going to see more and more of it over the next few years, because more and more firms do not want to deal with submitting the application to IRCC, managing all that admin work, and the client can actually save money by doing more of the work themselves, but still getting the highest value input from the Canadian immigration professional, which is review, feedback, answering questions, stuff like that. So anyways, definitely check out that article, the blog post that I linked. It's either in the LinkedIn chat if you're watching on LinkedIn, or it'll be in the YouTube description below if you're watching on the tube of views. I didn't take a sip before the segue from the last topic. But yeah, I think it's super interesting. If you have any thoughts, ideas, questions, or anything about that, let me know, especially if you're thinking about implementing them for your firm, because like I said, again, it's just becoming more and more popular. And I actually do think it's a good business decision when you consider the amount of time it's probably taking you on the admin side to manage the admin part of the process. So anyways, that is it for me in terms of the topics. Oh my God, it's 12:30 on the dot. It's like he's a machine. 12:30 on the dot. That is it for me in terms of topics. I'll wait for a minute to see if anybody has any questions, comments, thoughts that they wanted me to touch on this episode. If not, I will go back to work. I have a hectic afternoon, but hectic in a good way. So, anyways, that's it for me. Things continue to be very interesting, shall we say, in the Canadian immigration world. Still lots of news, lots of new stuff happening, changes, adjustments. So I have no doubt I'll have lots to talk about on the Visto show from here on out every 2 weeks, Friday noon, 12 p.m. Eastern time. And then, of course, the recordings go live on our YouTube channel, which I should probably link to you, because if you're watching live on LinkedIn right now, then I want you to be able to subscribe on YouTube, because if you ever can't show up live on LinkedIn, then you know you can always catch the recording on YouTube. So anyways, that is it for me, folks. I want to say a big thank you for everybody for watching the episode. If you tuned in live and stuck around, we got over 20 people that are still hanging around, tuning in live, which is awesome. I appreciate it on a Friday afternoon. And yeah, if you have any thoughts, questions on any of the above, feel free to reach out. Anything you want me to cover in future episodes, feel free. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday if you're watching this on a Friday. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you in 2 weeks from today, where we will confirm whether my express entry guess was correct. Oh, you know what? I'm going live on the 26th, so I'm gonna put my reminder on the 26th, and we'll review on the next Visto show to see how correct or blatantly incorrect I might have been. Anyways, thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.